So there's this thing that happens to me fairly often when I'm around young kids, especially during the summer when I'm not covered up by like 12 layers of clothing, where a kid will stop what they're doing and they'll look at my arms and my hands and my face and they'll ask me, "Why is your skin like that?" And I'll tell them that my body gets confused and it makes white patches on my skin. It doesn't hurt and it's not contagious. And then if I still have their attention, I might throw in, "I think there are lots of ways our bodies and minds are similar, and there's ways that we're all different." And then usually the kid's like, "Okay," and goes back to playing. And I've come to appreciate these moments, although they used to catch me off guard. I appreciate that kids are naturally curious. They integrate this new information I've given them, and then they move on. And so I think there's a teachable moment in there for both of us about curiosity, acceptance, and moving on. So tonight I'm going to be talking about my experience living with vitiligo. I'm going to be talking about some of the lessons it's taught me and the challenges I've experienced in learning to accept my body and my visible difference. And I hope to help all of us think about how we might practice accepting our bodies and the differences between us. So here's what you need to know about vitiligo. It's an autoimmune condition in which the immune system mistakenly attacks the cells that produce skin pigment so that people develop white patches on their skin. And this happens most often on parts of the body that get a lot of sun exposure, like the face and the neck and the hands. It impacts 1% of the global population, including people of all races, ethnicities, genders, and ages, although it's more visible on people with darker skin. And it can show up in childhood or young adulthood, but it also can appear for people at any age. Doctors believe that there's often a hereditary component and that it can be triggered by stressors or by environmental conditions. And there's currently no cure. Treatment options include the use of medication, light therapy, and skin grafting. And these options can be expensive, time-consuming, painful, and only somewhat effective. And some people with advanced vitiligo, like Michael Jackson, for instance, choose to take a medication to remove the skin pigment from their entire body so that they no longer have spots. The most difficult aspect of living with this condition is the profound emotional distress that people can experience due to having a visible difference. People often experience stares, rejection, name-calling, teasing, and this social stigma can really impact people's mental health. People might suffer from low self-esteem, anxiety or depression, and leading some people to even contemplate suicide. You know, I've heard stories of people who work the night shift so as not to be seen by others, or people who worry that they won't find a partner or a good job due to their visible difference. And in some cultures, vitiligo is seen as being similar to leprosy. So I developed vitiligo in my early 20s when a white patch appeared on my left eyelid, and my friends would ask, "Is that a burn mark or a scar?" And I had no idea. And it wasn't until the spots showed up on other parts of my face and hands that I finally went and got diagnosed by a dermatologist. And I remember her saying that, the spots could remain localized or they could spread to my entire body and that there was nothing I could do about it. So you might imagine how I felt in that appointment. My spots generally remained localized until I was in my 30s, and I gave birth to 2 awesome children. And during both postpartum periods, my pigment loss spread rapidly to my neck, my arms, my legs, hips, my feet. And I was so excited and exhausted and busy with new parenthood that I really didn't have a lot of mental or emotional capacity to focus too much on it. Although I do remember feeling sad and anxious about my rapidly disappearing pigment. And so, even with this, I feel like I have a lot of privilege as someone living with this condition. I developed it as an adult in my 30s when I already had a wonderful partner and a family and a career I loved. As a Caucasian person, my spots are not as visible as they are for people of color, and I think this has very real implications for how stigmatized I am. I also have socioeconomic security and health insurance, which means I've always had access to doctors and dermatologists and mental health providers. On the other hand, as a woman in our culture, I'm keenly aware of the pressures to be attractive and put together. I understand the ways in which women's appearance is judged and criticized more harshly than men's, and that women have to sort through a lot of powerful cultural expectations about beauty and self-worth. So given all of this, it's been a challenge for me to live with this condition. I remember one moment about 5 years ago after my family and I had moved into a new community. And it was early spring. It was like one of those first warm days where everybody's so excited, especially here in New England. And I was standing in my bathroom and I was looking in the mirror and I was looking at my spots and I was feeling really self-conscious. I was thinking about, should I cover up so that I don't stand out? And I knew on some level that covering up wouldn't work for me, that I wanted to be out in the sun, I wanted to feel the sun on my arms and be outside and play with my kids. And so I stood there, and it's like this little voice inside was like, no, I'm not going to cover up. I'm going to choose to be who I am and live in the body that I have, and I'm going to say no to shame and worry and self-consciousness. So I had this moment of insight, of sort of realization and commitment to myself, but then I had to put that into action. I had to work at it. It didn't just happen, right? So I did a number of things. One thing that I had to really focus on was wearing clothes that I liked, but that weren't about covering up. So, I wore things that showed my spots to work or when I was out doing errands, and I practiced sitting with the discomfort of that, of sort of ignoring people's looks or reactions, which I found got easier over time, and that people, maybe when they initially got to know me, they might, glance at my skin, but those looks and glances really stopped. And I think I listened to the rebellious part of me that didn't want anybody else to tell me how to think or feel about my body. It also felt empowering to tell loved ones that I was not choosing to pursue treatment at this time, that I was really practicing accepting my spots. Something else I had to do was I had to stop looking at myself and criticizing my spots in the mirror. I had to notice when I was doing that, and I would have to tell myself to stop. I would practice being kinder towards myself, noticing what I did like about my appearance, or if that whole accepting the body thing was too hard, I would think about what I had to do at work that day, or what I was making for dinner that night. Sometimes I had to take a tough love approach if I was feeling really self-pitying. I'd be like, it's not cancer. How you look is not as important as who you are. I also had to think about my body as the vehicle through which I experienced my everyday life. That the body's not just about looks. The body's really how we experience the joys and pleasures of life. I practiced noticing the beauty of hugging my children or going on a walk in the woods with my dog or eating a delicious meal. And I also thought about my body in a more spiritual sense as my connection to my ancestors and to my children, and that the body teaches us about interconnection. And it teaches us about joy and suffering and change, and that, it reminds me of my ultimate lack of control despite my best efforts to manage all the details all the time. And so, given this work, I think in some ways I make it sound easy, but it took me years of practice and effort and intention to shift my relationship to my appearance. Even after doing this work, I could still find myself looking at my friend's perfect skin with envy, or seeing an old photo of myself before I had vitiligo and feeling kind of sad and betrayed by my body. And I realized that I still needed to do some work. I still needed to challenge oppressive cultural beliefs that some bodies are more worthy or acceptable or attractive than others. There's so many ways to have and live in a body. And so I sought out images of other people with vitiligo or other forms of visible difference, and I practiced seeing the beauty and uniqueness in them. And I really had to think about my belief that all bodies are good bodies. And so at this point in my life, the vitiligo is not something I think about on a regular basis. It doesn't hold me back from what I want to do or accomplish. And I've actually really appreciated some of the lessons it's taught me and the opportunity to connect with other people that have similar experiences. And so I just want to take this moment to send a lot of love to everybody, to the millions of people living with vitiligo. I encourage you to take care of yourselves in whatever way feels right for you. I urge you to practice compassion for yourself and take pride in who you are, spots and all, whether you choose to accept them, treat them, cover them up, or show them off. And for those of you without vitiligo, I ask you to educate yourself about it or about any other condition that creates visible differences for others, like alopecia or ichthyosis. I ask you not to stare or ask intrusive questions, but to listen deeply if someone shares their experience with you. No one wants to be pitied, and we can't assume we understand someone else's relationship to their own body. And I really think it's on all of us to challenge oppressive cultural beliefs about bodies, about which bodies are more acceptable or worthy or attractive than others. I think, it's incredibly harmful that some bodies are considered normal and some aren't, and that it's really on all of us to create communities of respect in which all people feel seen and safe and valued. And so I've appreciated some of the lessons that vitiligo has kind of forced me to learn. Right, it's really made me get real with myself about how I want to relate to my body. To ask myself, how do I want to live in this body right now? Can I relate to it with greater compassion and acceptance, or will I allow myself to be stuck in shame? And can I challenge oppressive cultural beliefs and biases about appearance? And so all of this, I think, has helped me to become a stronger person, and it's helped me develop empathy and greater courage. And so I think that the next time a kiddo asks me, why is your skin like that? That I'm going to tell them that I have vitiligo, and it's my superpower. Thank you.